That night I remembered forever. It was about 10 o'clock and I was already in bed after a long day at the store when I heard shouting outside. It had been a particularly hard day. A new shipment had arrived, and I had to spend the rest of the evening unpacking boxes and putting food on the shelves. My arms ached, my back ached, and my only dream was to get to bed and get a good night's sleep before my shift tomorrow. At first, I thought it was just a drunken argument between neighbors, but then I smelled smoke. It was not the usual odor, not from a fire or a stove, but sharp, acrid, from burning plastic and old wood. My heart jumped, and I quickly looked out the window. What I saw made me jump out of bed. Tongues of red flame were rising from behind Ramiro's fence, illuminating the night darkness with an ominous light. The fire was already big, much bigger than a normal campfire, and it was growing fast. That damned alcoholic had done something wrong again. Ramiro had lived next door for 20 years, and in all that time, I couldn't remember him ever spending a day sober. He used to work as a mechanic at the local service station, even made good money. But gradually he drank himself to death. His wife Rosa left him 3 years ago, taking their 2 children with her. Since then, he's been a total wreck. His house became a dump, and in the yard he stored all sorts of junk. Old tires, broken furniture, piles of newspapers and magazines, which he dragged from unknown places. I quickly pulled on a robe over my nightgown and ran outside. The night air was cool, but I could already feel the heat from the fire. The fire had spread to Ramiro's shed, where he kept old newspapers, cardboard, and other trash. The flames rose high into the sky, sparks flying in all directions, and I realized with horror that the wind was blowing straight toward my house. Ramiro stood in the middle of his yard in his dirty shorts and t-shirt, waving his arms and muttering something to himself. His face was red from the fire and alcohol, his eyes cloudy, a stupid smile on his lips. It was obvious that he was drunk out of his mind and didn't realize what he had done. "Ramiro!" I shouted over the fence. "What have you done, you madman?" He turned to me, staggered back, and smiled stupidly. "Oh, Amelita, my beauty, don't swear. I decided to make a fire to warm up a little, and it turned out so big. Isn't it beautiful?" He smelled of booze and cheap vodka. I realized it was useless to talk to him. The fire was getting stronger. The flames were already licking the tops of the trees in his yard, and the wind was getting stronger. Dry leaves and branches were sending sparks all over the street. I rushed into the house to call the fire department. My fingers trembled as I dialed the number. It took an agonizingly long time, and when they finally answered, the man on duty spoke as slowly and indifferently as if he were ordering a pizza, not a fire. "Address? What's burning? Are there any injuries?" I hurriedly answered the questions while the fire was still burning. In our small town, the fire department didn't work very fast, especially at night. They had one old truck and 3 men on duty. While I was on the phone, the flames had already gotten to my fence. The old boards that my late husband and I had put up about 15 years ago caught fire like matchsticks. The fire ran along the fence like a live one, and in a few minutes it came up to the shed where I kept my gardening tools and old things. I rushed around the house, grabbing the most necessary things. First, the documents, passport, certificates, insurance policies, then the jewelry box I'd inherited from my mother. Photos of my late husband, our wedding album, Milagros' baby pictures. Some money I kept in an old teapot in the kitchen, my entire stash, accumulated over the years of working in the store. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding like crazy, my mind was in complete chaos. What else should I take? What was more important? I grabbed a warm jacket, stuffed a couple of changes of underwear and medications into my bag. It took about 10 minutes, but when I ran out of the house, the scene had changed dramatically. The fire had already gotten over the fence and into my shed. The old boards were cracking and collapsing, sparks flying onto the roof of the house. I watched in horror as the fire clung to the gutter and began to climb up to the roof. Neighbors gradually ran out of their homes. Donna Marta from across the street was dragging a bucket of water. Her son Pedro was trying to unroll a garden hose. The Gonzalez family from across the street were taking their most valuable possessions out of the house, clearly preparing for the worst. Everyone realized that if the fire was not stopped, it could spread to the entire neighborhood. But our attempts to put out the fire with buckets and hoses were useless. The flames had already reached the roof of my house, and the old shingles were cracking from the heat. Red tongues were making their way between the shingles, and I realized that the house could not be saved. I stood outside in my bathrobe and slippers, clutching my bag of papers, and watched my house burn. The same house where I had lived for 30 years, where Milagros had been born and raised, where my late husband and I had been happy, where he died 3 years ago, clutching his chest right at the kitchen table. The fire was devouring everything: the roof, the walls, the windows. Through the open windows, you could see the flames walking through the rooms, destroying the furniture my husband and I had bought over the years. The couch where he and I sat in the evenings watching TV. The table where our family had dinner. The bed where Milagros was born. Tears streamed down my cheeks, but I couldn't tear myself away from this terrible sight. The neighbors tried to comfort me. Donna Marta put her arm around my shoulders, but I couldn't hear anything. My ears were filled with the roar of the flames and the cracking of the collapsing beams. It took an hour for the fire department to arrive. In that time, my house had burned down, leaving only blackened walls and a pile of ashes. The fire engine was old and clumsy, and the firemen worked slowly without much enthusiasm. They poured water on the smoldering ruins, but it was clear that there was nothing left to save. The fire chief, a fat middle-aged man with a mustache, came up to me. "Do you have the papers on the house? Do you have insurance?" I nodded, pulling the papers out of my bag. My hands were still shaking. "Good. Tomorrow an expert will come to assess the damage. In the meantime, do you have a place to sleep?" Ramiro had already passed out and was sleeping on the ground in the yard of his burned house, hugging an empty bottle. He too was awaiting trial, but it was unlikely that he could be charged anything. He had no money, no possessions, no job. I spent the rest of the night with my neighbor Donna Marta, who gave me valerian and an old blanket. Her little house was crowded. Besides her, her son and daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren lived there. But the kind woman could not leave me on the street. I lay on a cot in their living room and stared at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. I had the same thoughts in my head. What to do now? Where to go? What to live on? I had very little money. My pension was small. My salary at the store wasn't very good either. For 3 years after my husband's death, I spent almost all my savings on his treatment and funeral expenses. I had home insurance, but not much, and I knew that the money would be enough for a small apartment somewhere on the outskirts of the city. In the morning, the insurers arrived. 2 young guys in suits who measured the ashes and wrote something down in notebooks. I didn't hold out much hope. The house was old, the sum insured was small, and insurance companies are always looking for ways to pay less. "The preliminary estimate is about 30,000 pesos, said one of them, a fat blonde man with a ruddy face. "We'll give you the final amount after the appraisal. 30,000. That money could only buy a room in an old house or a small apartment in the worst neighborhood. But we had to live somehow." Milagros arrived at noon. She worked in the beauty salon Bella in the center of the city. Not a bad place. Clients mostly from the middle class, tipped decently. Her daughter had heard about the fire from acquaintances who lived on our street. Milagros looked worried, but I sensed that her presence here was forced rather than a genuine desire to help. She had come alone without Eulalio, who she explained was at work. "Mom, my God, how did this happen?" she asked, looking at the ashes. "I just drove by yesterday and everything was fine." Milagros was dressed like a city girl. Jeans, a nice blouse, heeled shoes. Hair neatly styled, makeup flawless. You always had to look perfect at work at the salon. "Ramiro got drunk and set fire to his shed," I explained. The fire spread to our house. I barely had time to get the papers out. My daughter shook her head. "That alcoholic should have been put away a long time ago. How many times the district police officer came to see him, but it was no use. What are you going to do now?" I shrugged my shoulders. Frankly speaking, I didn't know myself. After my husband died, life became hard. We used to have a good life. My husband ran a small transportation company, 3 trucks that transported goods between cities. Things were going well. There was enough money. We even saved for our old age. But in the last years of my husband's life, everything went wrong. Big companies showed up with new cars that offered lower prices. Customers started leaving. The husband went into debt trying to buy new trucks, but that only made things worse. By the time he died, the company was in debt. The house I gave Milagros as a wedding gift, I bought with my husband's last money. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time. My daughter was getting married and I needed to help the young family. But now I realized it was a mistake. The money had run out, and somehow my relationship with my daughter had only deteriorated. I don't know, Milagros, I admitted. Maybe I'll rent something small, a studio apartment. The insurance will give me some money. The daughter was silent for a moment, obviously thinking about something. Our relationship had been strained for years. After we got married, she got colder, visited less often. She used to come every weekend, we cooked together, talked about all sorts of things. But after we got married, the visits became rare and formal. It got especially bad after my father died. Milagros came to the funeral, of course, but she kept her distance. And then she almost stopped visiting altogether. She called once a week to ask how she was doing, but there was no warmth in her voice. "Listen, Mom," Milagros finally said. "Maybe you could stay with us for a while. There's plenty of room in the house, just until you decide what you want to do next." I looked at her in surprise. I didn't expect that. After so many years of coldness, my daughter suddenly offers me to stay with them. "Are you sure? How will Eulalio feel about it?" "He and I discussed it on the way here," Milagros answered, but something in her tone seemed insincere. "He doesn't mind. It's a big house, there's plenty of room for everyone. The house was really big. When I bought it 4 years ago, I loved it. 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, spacious kitchen, living room, even an office. Big yard with a garden, 2-car garage. It cost a lot for those times, but I wanted to give my daughter a good wedding present." "Okay," I agreed, "but only temporarily, until I decide what to do next. I don't want to disturb you." "Of course it's temporary," Milagros answered quickly. "We're a family. We have to help each other." But something in her voice, a haste, told me it wasn't that simple. Maybe she and Eulalio had discussed my situation, or maybe it was a spontaneous decision that she regretted. In the afternoon, Piedad came to visit me. My childhood friend had heard about the fire from the neighbors and had rushed over from work right away. Piedad had been working as a janitor in a municipal building for about 20 years. Not a dusty job, but not much money. She was 2 years older than me, but she looked younger. She always looked after herself, wore makeup, dressed neatly. Even in her 60s, she looked like an attractive woman. Piedad was energetic and cheerful. Even after the death of her husband 5 years ago, she did not lose her optimism. "Well, friend," she said, hugging me tightly, "it seems that the sky is falling to the ground. But nothing, we will survive. Let's get you on your way." Piedad always knew how to be supportive in times of need. When my husband died, she came every day for a month, cooking, cleaning, just sitting by my side when I was having a hard time. We went together to look through the ashes, looking for anything that could be saved. In the ruins of the kitchen, we found a few surviving pots, cast iron ones that hadn't been melted by the fire, an old skillet I'd inherited from my grandmother. In the bedroom, under a pile of garbage, we found a jewelry box. The lid was burned, but the contents had survived. "At least something," Piedad sighed, shaking the jewelry box from the ashes. "Do you remember when your mother gave you those earrings? For your 18th birthday." I nodded, looking at the gold earrings with the little diamonds. My mother had bought them on installments for 6 months, bringing 20 pesos to the jewelry store every month. That was a lot of money for our family then. "You know, Amelita," Piedad said as we put the salvaged items into boxes, "I've wanted to talk to you about Eulalio for a long time." "What's wrong with him?" Piedad looked around, making sure no one could hear us. "I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't like him. There's something wrong with him." "What do you mean?" "Well, look at him. He works as a loader in Gomez's warehouse and he makes a pittance." "How do they live?" "Milagro just bought a new car, a red Peugeot. They're always renovating the house, remodeling the bathroom or the kitchen. Last week I saw them bringing in a new TV, a big one." "Where's the income coming from?" To be honest, I also noticed that the young family lived quite extensively. Milagros worked as a hairdresser, earning well by local standards, $2,000 a month with tips, but that wouldn't be enough for such a life. Eulalio at the warehouse made a maximum of 1,200. I knew that for sure, because Donna Marta's son worked there too. Maybe he has a part-time job, I suggested. Or maybe Milagros earns more than she says she does. Maybe, Piedad agreed. But there was doubt in her voice. Only I've heard talk in town. People say he doesn't make his money honestly. What do you mean? Well, I don't know exactly. Maybe it's gossip. But Ricardo at Estrella Bar said that Eulalio often shows up there with strangers, sitting in the corner quietly discussing something. And then those people disappear, and Eulalio has pockets full of money. Piedad was not a gossip, but in a small town everyone knew each other, and everyone talked about everyone else. If she suspected something, she had reason to. Just be careful, Amelita, her friend warned. I think there's something wrong with this guy, and you're going to live in the same house with them now. I didn't pay much attention to her words. Eulalio really was not my favorite son-in-law. Rude, ill-mannered, with a perpetually disgruntled face. When Milagros introduced us 4 years ago, I didn't like him right away. But my daughter loved him, and I tried not to interfere in their family life. By evening, we loaded my few salvaged belongings into Piedad's old Volkswagen and drove to Milagros's house. On the way, my friend warned me again. If anything goes wrong, call me right away. I don't have much room, but there's always room for you. We arrived at the house around 8 in the evening. The house looked even more impressive than I remembered. Milagros and Eulalio had renovated it in 4 years. New roof, fresh paint on the walls, beautiful white-framed windows. The yard was well maintained, the lawn mowed, the flower beds neatly planted. Eulalio met us on the doorstep. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with black curly hair and a thick beard, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt with expensive sneakers on his feet. He had a look of obvious displeasure on his face, though he tried not to show it. Hi, Amelita, he said dryly, not moving from his seat. Sorry to hear about the house. Thank you, Eulalio. Sorry to bother you. That's all right, he mumbled. We've prepared a room for you upstairs. It's quiet, and no one will bother you. I could hear the hint in his tone that he meant don't bother us, stay in your room. But I had no choice. Milagros walked me through the house. Inside, it was even more impressive. New furniture, expensive curtains, a large TV in the living room, a leather sofa. The kitchen was gleaming with new appliances, dishwasher, microwave, coffee machine. It's beautiful, I said. We're getting settled in, Milagros said, but her voice didn't have the pride I'd expected to hear. The room I'd been assigned was on the second floor, at the end of the hallway. It was bright, with a window to the courtyard, and quite spacious. There was an old bed that I recognized. It was my former bed from the guest room. A closet, a desk, a chair. Thank you, daughter, I said. The room is nice. The bathroom is shared at the end of the hallway, Milagros explained. If you need anything, let me know. Piedad helped me organize my things. All my belongings fit in one corner of the room. A suitcase of clothes, a box of dishes, a jewelry box, a few photographs. Well, you seem to have settled in pretty well, my friend said, looking around the room. The main thing is that you have a roof over your head, and then we'll see. Yes, of course. Milagros didn't leave me on the street after all. Don't let them ride you, Piedad said in a low voice. Remember, you gave them this house, and they should be grateful to you, not the other way around. After Piedad left, I went down to the kitchen. Milagros was preparing dinner, frying meat in a pan, cutting salad. Eulalio was sitting in the living room in front of the TV, drinking beer from a bottle. The atmosphere in the house was tense. I could feel it in my body. Why don't you help with dinner? I suggested. No need, Mom. I can do it myself, replied my daughter without raising her eyes from the stove. You're tired, Rest. I sat down at the kitchen table and watched Milagros chopping vegetables. Her hands moved quickly and confidently, the effect of her work as a hairdresser, where precision was needed. She was a beautiful woman, like her late father. The same dark eyes, straight features, thick black hair. But in recent years, her face had grown harder and there was a kind of coldness in her eyes. We used to be very close when she was a teenager. She used to tell me about everything about school, about her friends, about the boys she liked. Now it's like a wall has grown between us. The first days in my daughter's house were quite quiet. I tried not to disturb the young family, got up early before they woke up, and had breakfast quietly in the kitchen. Eulalio left for work at 7 in the morning, Milagros at 9. I stayed alone in the big house until evening. It was strange at first. The house was much larger than my burned out dwelling, and I felt uncomfortable in it. Too much space, too many unfamiliar things. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle made me wary. I was afraid of breaking something, of ruining something, of disturbing the order. Milagros showed me where everything was in the kitchen, explained how to use the washing machine and dishwasher. The appliances were new, much more modern than the ones I had at home. Buttons, sensors, displays. I was afraid to press something wrong. "Mom, don't be afraid," my daughter said, showing me the control panel of the washing machine. "If you don't understand something, ask." But I could see that she didn't really want to waste time explaining. Milagros was always in a hurry, whether it was to work, to a friend's house, or to go shopping. She didn't come home for long, and we didn't talk much. Eulalio was even more aloof. In the morning, he would say, "Hello?" When he came home from work, he would say, "How are you?" And that was the end of our communication. He avoided being alone with me, and if he did, he pretended to be very busy, watching TV, fiddling with the phone, reading the newspaper. I realized that my presence was weighing on them, but there was nowhere to go. The insurance company kept delaying the payment. The expert came twice, but he never gave me the final amount. And without money, I couldn't even rent a room. To get by, I started cleaning the house. Milagros worked all day and the chores piled up. I scrubbed the floors, dusted, did the laundry. It made me feel like I was doing some good, not just living as a freeloader. The house was big, and cleaning it was not easy. 2 bathrooms, 4 bedrooms, a spacious living room, a kitchen, a study. There was expensive furniture, beautiful paintings, and rugs everywhere. I carefully walked around all these things, afraid of damaging something. What surprised me most was the luxury that surrounded the young family. When I'd bought this house 4 years ago, it had been ordinary, with no frills. But over the years, Milagros and Eulalio had turned it into a palace. In the living room was a huge leather couch that cost probably as much as my annual salary. A TV the size of a small window hung on the wall. In the kitchen, the steel surfaces of expensive appliances gleamed. A refrigerator with 2 doors, a 6-burner stove, a coffee machine that looked like a spaceship appliance. In Milagros and Eulalio's bedroom, I saw a huge bed with a carved headboard, a massive mahogany dresser, a full wall mirrored closet. The bathroom had a jacuzzi tub, a shower stall with many faucets and nozzles, and gold faucets. All of this was very expensive, far more than the hairdresser and the movers could afford. Even if Milagros was earning more than I thought, and Eulalio had a good part-time job, such spending seemed excessive. I remembered Piedad's words that something was wrong with Eulalio. Maybe her friend was right? How could he have so much money? On my 4th day in the house, I decided to tackle the basement. Milagros had mentioned that it was damp and needed cleaning. I went down the wooden stairs into the semi-basement. The basement was quite large, with concrete walls and a low ceiling. It smelled damp and musty. Along the walls were racks of tools, tins of canned goods, and boxes of miscellaneous items. There was an old bicycle in the corner and some garden furniture that had been removed from the veranda for the winter. I brought a mop and a bucket, turned on a light bulb, and started cleaning. First, I swept the cobwebs from the ceiling, then I dusted the shelves. Most things were ordinary: old books, dishes that hadn't been used, boxes of Christmas toys. But when I got to the far corner, behind the tool rack, I found something strange. On the floor were several cardboard boxes carefully taped together. They were neatly hidden behind other things, so they weren't visible from the entrance. Curiosity got the better of me. I carefully peeled off the tape on one of the boxes and looked inside. What I saw made me recoil. The box contained neatly packaged bags of a greenish substance. I wasn't a naive woman and knew exactly what it was: marijuana. Drugs. My heart beat faster. I cautiously opened the second box. Same thing. The third, there were some scales, plastic bags, rubber bands. It all looked very professional, like a real drug warehouse. I quickly taped the boxes back together and put them in place. My hands were shaking. My mind was chaotic. So Piedad was right. Eulalia was indeed making money the dishonest way. He was dealing drugs. Now it made sense how they got so much money. The marijuana trade brought good profits, especially in our small town where young people were willing to pay any kind of money for weed. I climbed out of the basement feeling completely confused. What to do now? Should I tell Milagros, but does she know about my husband's business? Maybe she knows and is even helping him? The thought that my daughter might be involved in the drug trade was unbearable. It couldn't be. Milagros was a good girl. I raised her strictly. She couldn't get involved with such things. But on the other hand, she lived in that house. Couldn't help but know what was going on. The money that was being spent on luxuries was clearly drugged. Was she really turning a blind eye to it? All day I walked around in a fog. I couldn't find my place. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd discovered. When Eulalio came home from work, I looked at him with different eyes. This rude, unpleasant man was also a criminal. He had behaved as usual, saying hello reluctantly, grabbing a beer from the fridge, sitting in front of the TV. But now I saw something suspicious in his behavior. He often talked on the phone, going into another room. Several times strangers came to the house. He went outside to them, and they talked quietly about something. Milagros came home around 7 in the evening. She looked tired, on her feet all day, one client after another. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup was smeared, and there were hair dye stains on her blouse. "Hi, Mom," she said, walking into the kitchen. "What's up? What have you been doing?" "Cleaning," I said. I cleaned the basement. Milagros paused for a second, but then continued toward the refrigerator. "Good. It was really time to clean it up." I could hear the slight worry in her voice. Did she know what was in the basement? She probably did. We ate dinner in tense silence. Eulalio chewed his meat in silence, staring at the TV. Milagros was picking at her salad, obviously thinking about something. I couldn't find the words to start a conversation about what was bothering me. After dinner, Eulalio went to his office, as he said, to do paperwork. Milagros stayed in the kitchen washing dishes. This was my chance to talk to her alone. "Milagros," I began cautiously, "can I talk to you?" "Sure, Mom. About what?" My daughter continued to wash the dishes without turning toward me. I could sense that she was tense. "I wanted to talk about us, about our relationship. What's wrong with it?" "You know what's wrong with it. We've become strangers. We used to be close, and now—" Milagros finally turned around. She had a look of annoyance on her face. "Mom, don't start that again. I'm a grown woman. I have my own family, my own life. I can't spend my whole life being a little girl." "I understand. But why have you become so cold? Especially after Daddy died." My daughter sighed. "Mom, Dad died 3 years ago. It's time to accept it and move on." "I have. But I think you're blaming me for something." "I don't blame anyone," Milagros said sharply. "It's just that I don't want to keep bringing up the past, talking about death, about how things used to be. I want to live in the present." "But we're mother and daughter. We should be close." "Should we?" Milagros raised her voice. "No one owes anyone anything. I live my life. You live yours." I felt tears come to my eyes. This coldness of my daughter was more painful than the fire that deprived me of my home. "Milagros, what have I done to you? Why do you dislike me so much?" "Mom, stop it." My daughter threw the rag in the sink. "I love you. I just have my own family, my own problems. I can't come to you every day and listen to you complain about your life." "I'm not complaining." "Yes, you are. All the time. I'm in poor health. I have no money. I'm lonely. What can I do? I have enough problems of my own." "What are your problems?" I asked. "You live in a beautiful house. Your husband has a good job." Milagros turned around sharply. "How do you know what kind of job he has? You don't know how we live at all. I know that you live very well. Maybe even too well for your income." My daughter looked at me carefully. "What are you saying?" I made up my mind. "Milagros, I was cleaning the basement today and I saw some strange things. Boxes of stuff." Milagros' face turned pale, but she quickly pulled herself together. "I don't know what you're talking about. Daughter, don't lie to me. I'm not blind. These sachets, I know what they are." "Mom," Milagros' voice became harsh. "Mind your own business. You're a guest here temporarily. Don't poke your nose where it doesn't belong. The words hit me like a slap in the face. A guest. In the house I gave them. Milagros, I'm your mother. I'm worried about you. Don't worry, I'm fine. But if Eulalio is dealing drugs— Shut up! Her daughter shouted sharply. Don't talk about my husband like that. But it's true. How else would you have so much money? It's none of your business. Milagros was already very angry. We took you in out of pity, and you're meddling in our business, out of pity. Those words hurt my heart. I'm not here out of pity, I said quietly. I'm here because my house burned down, and because we're a family. Family? Milagros grinned bitterly. What family? You gave us a house thinking you could buy our love. And then you wonder why we've grown cold. I wanted to help you. Help? Or tie you down? To make us indebted to you? I didn't know what to say. Maybe there was some truth to what my daughter said. Maybe by giving them a house, I really wanted to buy their affection. Mom, let's finish this conversation, Milagros said more calmly. I need to get some rest. I have to get up early tomorrow. She walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone. I sat at the table and cried. The conversation had not gone at all as I had hoped. Instead of getting closer to my daughter, I had only pushed her further away. Most importantly, the drug issue remained open. Milagros didn't deny what I'd found in the basement, but she didn't want to talk about it either. What did that mean? Did she know about her husband's affairs? Was she involved in them? I spent the next day thinking. I kept replaying yesterday's conversation with my daughter in my head, thinking about what to do next. Stay silent and pretend I didn't know anything? Or try to talk to Milagros again? Toward evening, I decided to call Piedad. A friend was the only person I could talk to openly. Piedad, can you come over? I need to talk to you. Sure, friend. What's wrong? I can't tell you over the phone. Come when you can. Piedad arrived an hour later. Milagros was still at work, Eulalio too. We were alone in the house. What's wrong, Amelita? My friend asked, scrutinizing my face. You don't look well. Piedad, you were right about Eulalio. What do you mean? I told my friend about what I had found in the basement. Piedad listened without interrupting, but her face grew more and more serious. That's it, she said when I finished. So he is a drug dealer after all. What do I do, Piedad? Yesterday I tried to talk to Milagros, but she won't listen. On the contrary, she's offended that I'm meddling. Does she know about her husband's business? I think she knows. At least she suspects it. When I told her I was cleaning the basement, she got tense. Piedad shook her head thoughtfully. It's not good, Amelita. Very bad. If the police find out, both of them will suffer. Both Eulalio and Milagros. I'm afraid for my daughter. She could get hurt because of her husband's business. Do you think she's not involved? Piedad asked. Living in the house, spending the money from the drug trade. That's a crime too. I didn't want to think about my daughter being a criminal. But the facts spoke for themselves. She knew where the money came from and she kept quiet. What should I do? I said it again. I don't know, my friend. It's a complicated situation. On the one hand, she's your daughter. On the other hand, she is a grown woman. She has chosen her own path. Why don't you try talking to her again? Explain to her that it's dangerous? You can try. But from what you're telling me, she doesn't want to listen to you. We sat for another hour discussing the situation. Piedad advised me to be careful. Amelita, these people are not joking. If Eulalio is really dealing drugs on a serious scale, he could be dangerous. Don't get too deep into these things. But that's my daughter. Your daughter is an adult, and she's made her choice. You can try to talk some sense into her, but that's all you can do. When my friend left, I sat in my room for a long time, thinking about her words. Piedad was right. Milagros was a grown woman, and I couldn't force her to change her life. But could I just keep quiet, knowing that there were drugs stored in the house? Could I live under the same roof as criminals, pretending I knew nothing? Eulalio came home around 9 o'clock at night. He looked happy, even hummed something under his breath. He greeted me in a friendlier way than usual. How are you, Amelita? How are you feeling in our house? Fine, thank you. If you need anything, just say so. We're a family now. There was something false in his words. He was obviously trying to be nice, but it was unnatural. Maybe Milagros had told him about our conversation last night, and now he was afraid I might do something about it. Milagros came in late, around 10 o'clock. She looked tired and irritable. She ate dinner in silence, not looking up. I tried to make conversation, but she answered in one word. How's work going? It was okay. Did you get a lot of clients? The usual. Milagros, maybe we should talk about yesterday. There's nothing to talk about, her daughter said sharply. I've said all I need to say. After dinner, she went straight to her room. I realized that our relationship had reached an impasse. My daughter did not want to listen to me, did not want to discuss problems, and I didn't know how to get through to her. At night, I couldn't sleep for a long time. My mind was spinning with thoughts of what to do next. Should I stay in this house, knowing what was happening here? Or try to find another place to live, although I didn't have money for that yet? And most importantly, how to save my daughter from the abyss into which she was rolling. Sooner or later, the police would find out about Eulalio's business, and then not only he would suffer, but also Milagros. I lay in the dark and thought about how my life hadn't turned out the way I'd planned. My house had burned down, my relationship with my daughter had deteriorated, and now I found out that my only daughter was involved with criminals. What would my late husband say if he found out? He was so fond of Milagros, so proud of her. Had all our efforts to raise her gone to waste? I got up this morning with a firm resolve to try to talk to my daughter again. Maybe if I explained the consequences to her, she'd come to her senses. Maybe it wasn't too late to save her from certain doom. But when I went down to the kitchen, Milagros was already getting ready for work. She was dressed, makeup on, ready to go. Milagros, wait. We need to talk. Mom, I'm late. We'll talk tonight. It's important. It's about your safety. My daughter stopped at the door. What safety? Do you realize that sooner or later the police will find out about Eulalio's business? And then not only he will suffer, but you as well. Milagros's face became hard. Mom, I told you to stay out of our business, but it's dangerous. You could go to jail. I won't if you don't say anything, she said and left the house. The words sounded like a threat. I realized that talking to my daughter would not help. She had made her choice and she wasn't going to give it up. I spent the rest of the day in anxious reflection. It was becoming clear that I didn't belong in this house. But where to go? And most importantly, what to do with the drug information. The next day, I made a decision that had been brewing in my head for a long time. I could no longer keep quiet and pretend that nothing was going on. I had to talk directly to Milagros and Eulalio about what I knew about their affairs. It might be my last chance to talk some sense into my daughter. In the morning, as Eulalio was getting ready for work, I approached him. Eulalio, we need to talk. Tonight, when you're both home. He looked at me in surprise. What is there to talk about? You'll find out tonight. It concerns both of you. There was a flicker of concern in his eyes, but he said nothing, just nodded and left. I could see that my words disturbed him. He must have guessed what it was about. Milagros, too, was wary of my request to talk. Mom, what do you want to talk about? You'll find out tonight when you're both home. Can't you tell me now? Nunuptu. This is a serious conversation. It concerns your family. My daughter looked at me carefully and I could see the worry in her eyes. She knew it was about something important. All day I had been preparing for this conversation. I thought about what to say, how to choose the right words so my daughter would hear me. I didn't want to blame her or reproach her. I just wanted to explain how dangerous the situation they were in was. Hope still lingered in my heart. Maybe if I calmly, motherly explained the consequences to Milagros, she would come to her senses. Maybe she could help me convince Eulalio to stop dealing drugs. Eulalio came home around 6 in the evening. He looked tense, glanced at me a few times, but didn't say anything. Milagros arrived at 7, tired as usual after a day's work. We ate dinner in silence. The atmosphere at the table was tense. Everyone felt that there was a serious conversation to be had. Eulalio hardly ate, constantly distracted by his phone. Milagros was also out of sorts, picking at her food with her fork without raising her eyes. After dinner, I asked them to stay in the kitchen. I need to talk to you about what's going on in this house. Eulalio and Milagros looked at each other. I could see that they both knew what they were talking about. "We're listening," Eulalio said, leaning back in his chair. There was aggression in his posture. I took a deep breath and began. "A few days ago, when I was cleaning out the basement, I found boxes of whatever was stored there." Eulalio frowned. "And what did you find there?" "You know very well what. Bags of marijuana, scales, all the tools of the drug trade." There was a heavy silence. Milagros turned pale. Eulalio clenched his fists. "So what?" he said at last. "What business is it of yours?" "What do you mean?" I couldn't believe such insolence. "It's drugs! It's a crime!" "This is my home, my life," Eulalio replied sharply. "And it's none of your business what I do." "This is not your home." I couldn't take it anymore. "I bought this house and gave it to Milagros, and I don't want any drug dealing here." Eulalio stood up from the table, his face dark with anger. "Listen to me, old woman. The house may not be mine by the papers, but I am the owner, and it's not for you to tell me what to do." "Eulalio, don't talk to my mother like that," Milagros intervened, but her voice was uncertain. "Why, is she right?" He turned to his wife. "She comes into our house and starts telling us how to live." "I'm not telling you how to live your life," I said, trying to remain calm. "I'm asking you to stop dealing drugs. It's dangerous. Sooner or later, the police will find out, and you'll both get hurt." "The police?" Eulalio grinned evilly. "Who's going to tell them? Wouldn't you?" There was a serious threat in his voice. I felt a chill run down my spine. "I'm not going to tell anyone. I want you to stop this." "We're not going to stop anything," Eulalio said. "I like my job. It pays well." "It's not a job. It's a crime." I raised my voice. "Milagros, you realize it's wrong, don't you?" My daughter was silent, her eyes downcast. I could see that she was agonizing, that there was a struggle in her soul. "Milagros, answer me." I addressed her directly. "Do you realize what you've gotten yourself into?" "Mom," began her daughter. But Eulalio interrupted her. "She's not involved in anything. She's my wife. She lives in my house, and it's none of your business what money we live on." "What money?" I felt my anger boiling up inside me. "Drug money. The money you get from maiming young people." "Shut up!" Eulalio shouted. "I'm not maiming anybody. People want to buy their own weed. I'm just helping them. You're a criminal." I got up from the table. "And you're dragging my daughter into this. Your daughter is a grown woman." Eulalio came right up to me. "And she made her choice." He was tall and broad-shouldered, and I felt small and defenseless next to him. In his eyes, I saw anger and something like a threat. "Mom, please stop," Milagros said quietly. "There's no need to fight." "I'm not fighting." I turned to my daughter. "I'm trying to save you. Don't you realize what could happen if the police find out?" "What would happen?" Milagros asked, finally looking up. "You'll be arrested with him. You live in the house where the drugs are kept. You spend the money you get from selling them. In the eyes of the law, you're an accessory." "She's not guilty of anything," Eulalio intervened. "She doesn't know about my business." "She doesn't?" I looked at him in surprise. "Then where did you get the money for all this luxury? The new car, the furniture, the renovations?" "That's my problem," Eulalio muttered. "No, it's the family's problem." I turned to my daughter again. "Milagros, come to your senses. Think about your future. Do you want to go to jail because of him?" My daughter was silent, but I could see that my words were hurting her. There was a struggle in her eyes. Between fear and affection for her husband, between realizing the danger and not wanting to change her life. "Milagros, answer me," I insisted. "Don't you realize that this will end badly?" "Yeah," began her daughter, but Eulalio interrupted again. "She understands that you have to think about your family, not listen to all this nonsense." "Bullshit!" I felt myself losing patience. "You call my concerns for my daughter bullshit? I call your moralizing nonsense." Eulalio came even closer. "You live in our house, eat our bread, and tell us how to live." "This is not your house," I shouted. "I bought it and gave it to Milagros." "So what?" Eulalio grinned evilly. "If you gave it to me, it's no longer yours. It's mine, not yours, Milagros." I turned to my daughter. "Milagros, this house is in your name. You can stop him from dealing drugs here." My daughter raised her head and looked at me. I saw something in her eyes that I didn't expect to see: coldness, even hostility. Mom, she said in a calm voice, I think you should stay out of our business. The words struck me like a thunderclap. I had expected everything: tears, screams, objections, but not such calm indifference. Milagros, I said quietly, do you not realize that I am doing this out of love for you? Out of love? She stood up and put her hands behind her back. Out of love, you gave us a house, thinking you would buy our gratitude. Out of love, you try to control our lives. I don't want that kind of love. Daughter. I am not your daughter, Milagros said sharply. Not after what you said today. Those words hurt me more than a knife. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. Milagros, what are you saying? I'm telling the truth. As of today, you're dead to me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My only daughter, whom I had birthed, nurtured, raised, was telling me that I was dead to her. Don't say that, I whispered. You don't really think that. I do, Milagros replied firmly. And not only do I think, but I know what to do next. What do you mean? Meaning that if you want to live in this house, you'll pay for it, like any other tenant. I looked at my daughter with a puzzled look. Pay? Pay for what? The rent, the room, the utilities, the food? Milagros, are you crazy? This is the house I gave you. If you gave it to me, it's no longer yours, Eulalio intervened. And if it is not yours, then you must pay for living in it. How much? I asked, feeling myself shaking with indignation. $1,750 a month, Milagros said calmly. I was stunned at the amount. $1,750 was more than I'd earned in 3 months at the store. You're crazy, I shouted. Where did I get that kind of money? That's not my problem, my daughter shrugged. If you want to live here, you pay. If you don't want to pay, get out. Milagros. I couldn't believe my daughter's cruelty. What happened to you? Where's the girl I raised? That girl grew up, Milagros answered coldly, and she realized that sentimentality has no place in life. It's not sentimentality, it's humanity. Humanity? Her daughter grinned bitterly. And where was your humanity when you gave us a house, and then all his life reproached this gift? I never reproached you. You did. Every time I came to visit, every conversation ended with the fact that it was your house, your gift, your kindness. I was confused. Was that really how I acted? I didn't mean to. It doesn't matter what you wanted, Milagros interrupted. What matters is what happened, and what happened is that you think you have the right to tell us how to live our lives. I have a right to worry about you. No, you don't, said the daughter sharply. You lost that right when you started meddling in our affairs. Eulalio, who had been silent all this time, finally intervened. Enough talk. Amelita, you have understood everything. Either pay $1,750 a month or get out of the house. There's no third way. And when do you want to get this money? I asked bitterly. Tomorrow, replied Milagros, by tomorrow evening. And if I don't have that money? Then pack your things and leave, said Eulalio. I'm sick of looking at your sour face. Those words were the last straw. I realized that I didn't belong here anymore, that I was a stranger in the house I'd bought for my daughter. Okay, I said, trying to keep my dignity. I'm leaving. Not because I'm afraid of your threats, but because I don't want to live with criminals. That's right, Eulalio nodded. Just remember, if you tell anyone about what you saw in the cellar, you'll regret it. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, he said quietly, but there was a threat in his voice. I have friends who don't like chatty old women. I looked at Milagros, hoping she would stop her husband, tell him he'd gone too far, but my daughter remained silent, looking away. I see, I said. Then I'll go pack my things. I turned and walked toward the stairs. I could hear them whispering behind me, but I didn't make out the words. I went up to my room and sat on my bed. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding. I couldn't believe what had happened. My daughter, whom I loved more than life, had disowned me. What's more, she had sided with her criminal husband and threatened me. Where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? Maybe Milagros was right and I was really trying to buy her love with gifts? Maybe by my care and control I had pushed my daughter away? But even if that's the case, does that really justify her getting involved with a drug dealer? Does it justify her cruelty to me? I pulled out my bag and started putting things away. There wasn't much: a few changes of clothes, toiletries, papers, some money. My whole life fit into one bag. When I had everything packed, I called Piedad. Girlfriend, can you come over? I need help. What's wrong, Amelita? I'll tell you when you get here. I need to get out of here right away. I'm coming, Piedad said briefly. I went downstairs with my bag in my hands. Milagros and Eulalio were sitting in the living room watching TV. They didn't even turn their heads when I walked by. I'm waiting for a friend, I said. Then I'll leave. Good, Eulalio mumbled, not looking away from the screen. Milagros was silent. I hoped that at the last moment she would come to her senses, come to me, say that she didn't mean to offend me. But my daughter continued to watch TV, pretending I wasn't here. Piedad arrived half an hour later. She entered the house, looked around, and understood without words. Get ready, she said to me. You're coming to my place. Piedad, you don't have much room? There is, she said firmly. There is always room for you. We took my things and went to the exit. At the door, I turned around one last time. Milagros, maybe you still change your mind? My daughter finally raised her head and looked at me. No, Mom, I won't change my mind. Goodbye. The word goodbye sounded like a sentence. Not goodbye, not see you later, but goodbye. Forever. I walked out of the house I'd bought for my daughter, feeling like a destitute refugee. The door closed behind me, and I realized that I had lost not only my home, but my daughter forever. Piedad helped me to the car. I sat in the passenger seat and cried. All the emotions I had been holding back during the conversation with Milagros and Eulalio came rushing out. Cry, friend, Piedad said, starting the car. Cry, it will help. We drove across town to Piedad's house. I looked out the window at the familiar streets and thought about how my life had finally fallen apart. My house had burned down. My relationship with my daughter had deteriorated, and now I was all alone. Piedad, I said when we stopped at her house. What am I going to do? I don't know, friend, she answered honestly. But whatever you decide, I will be there for you. Piedad's house was small, only 2 rooms, but cozy. She made a bed for me on the couch in the living room, brought me tea, and sat next to me. Tell me what happened. I told my friend about the conversation with Milagros and Eulalio, how my daughter had demanded my rent and disowned me. Piedad listened, shaking her head. What a snake, she said when I finished my story. How could she do that to you? I don't know. I thought I knew my daughter, but it turns out I don't know her at all. Amelita, what are you going to do now? With the drug information, I mean. I wondered. What was I really going to do? Go to the police? But then Milagros would get hurt, and I still loved my daughter, despite everything that had happened. I don't know, I admitted. Milagros is still my daughter. How could I send her to prison? How could she put you out on the street? Piedad objected. My friend, she made her choice. She chose a criminal husband over her mother. But she's my daughter. She was your daughter, Piedad said sternly. And now she's a stranger, and a dangerous one. Did you hear Eulalio threaten you? I nodded. The threat sounded quite serious. Amelita, these people can't be trusted. They deal drugs. They have criminal connections. If they decide you're a danger to them... Piedad didn't finish, but I knew what she meant. What's your advice to me? Think of yourself. You've already done everything you could to save your daughter. She wouldn't listen to you. Now think about your own safety. We sat up late into the night discussing the situation. Piedad was right. Milagros had made her choice, and I couldn't change it. All that remained was to decide what to do next. Lying on the couch in the dark, I thought about my daughter, about how small she was, how happy she was with presents, how she hugged me before bedtime. Where is that little girl? When did she turn into a cold, cruel woman? Or maybe I really was a bad mother. Maybe by my obsessive care and control I pushed my daughter away. But even if that was true, did that really justify her getting involved with criminals? I cried into my pillow, trying not to wake Piedad. I cried for my lost daughter, for my broken family, for my broken life. And I knew I had some hard decisions ahead of me. I woke up on Piedad's couch with only one thought in my head. I had to go to my lawyer. During the night, tossing and turning without sleep, I made a decision. If Milagros thinks the house belongs to her and Eulalio, let her find out the truth about the deeds. Piedad, I said to my friend at breakfast, I need to go to Lisandro Vega. To the lawyer? Why? I want to know how the deeds to the house are done. Milagros said yesterday that the house is no longer mine since I donated it, but I remember Lisandro saying something about leaving the deeds to me. Piedad nodded. Right. One needs to know where you stand legally. Lisandro Vega received me that same day. He was an elderly man in his 60s, had worked in our town for 30 years and knew all the local laws like the back of his hand. He was the one who had helped me with the purchase of the house 4 years ago. Amelita, he said, looking over the paperwork. I remember the case. You wanted to transfer the house to your daughter as soon as you bought it, but I advised you not to do that. Yes, I remember. You said it was better to wait. That's right. The house is still in your name. Legally, you're the sole owner. So I can have the house any way I want? Of course you can. Sell it, rent it out, evict the tenants, whatever you want. It's your property. What about Milagros? She thinks the house is a gift to her, doesn't she? Lisandro shrugged. Technically, there was no gift. You just let your daughter and son-in-law live in your house. But the papers are in your name. I felt something tighten in my chest. It turned out that all these years Milagros and Eulalio lived in my house, thinking that it was theirs. And now, Lisandro, what if I want to sell the house? No problem. You're the owner. You have every right. How quickly can it be done? The lawyer thought. If there are buyers and they agree to a quick deal, a week or two. The documents are in order, no encumbrances. And how much do such houses cost now? After the repairs that have been made there, $189,000, maybe even $100,000. I was amazed. When I bought the house, it was $40,000. In 4 years, the prices had gone up, plus the expensive repairs Milagros and Eulalio had done, and now the house was worth twice as much. Lisandro, help me sell the house. Are you sure? It's your daughter's house. Ex-daughter, I said firmly. She said yesterday that I was dead to her. The lawyer looked at me carefully. What happened, Amelita? I spoke briefly about what had happened yesterday, about the rent demand, about Eulalio's threats. I see, Lisandro nodded. Then it's really better to sell. I have clients who are looking for such a house. Who are they? A young family, teachers, Pedro and Carmen Morales. He teaches high school math, she teaches literature. They've been looking for a house for 6 months, but the prices are too high. Can they pay for my house? They have a loan from the bank for $80,000. If you agree to that amount, it could be done very quickly. $80,000. That's a lot of money for me. I could buy a small house with it and still have enough left over for a comfortable old age. I agree, I said. When can I meet the buyers? Tomorrow if you want. They're very interested. The meeting with the Morales went quickly. They were a nice young couple in their 30s, very similar to what Milagros and her father had once been. Pedro was tall, thin, glasses wearing, serious and thoughtful. Carmen was a petite brunette with kind eyes. Mrs. Vasquez, Pedro said, we're very interested in buying your house. It's perfect for us. What about the current tenants? Carmen asked. Lisandro told me that your daughter lives there. It's temporary, I answered. They'll move out soon. We agreed on a price of $80,000 and a quick deal. The Morales agreed to wait a week while I sorted out the eviction of the current tenants. Lisandro, I said when the buyers left, what about Milagros and Eulalio? They won't want to just move out. Legally, they're just tenants without a lease. You can evict them at any time with 3 days' notice. And if they refuse, then you'll have to go to court, but that would take time. I'm thinking, Milagros and Eulalio weren't going to leave the house willingly, especially when they found out it was for sale. Isn't there some other way? We could sell the house with the tenants, but then the buyers would have to evict them themselves. The Morales won't agree to that. So we'd have to evict them first, then sell. Exactly. On the way home to Piedad's, I thought about what to do next. Milagros and Eulalio won't leave the house voluntarily. And if they found out about the sale in advance, they might interfere with the deal or even do something to me. I was especially worried about Eulalio with his threats and criminal connections. He's not the type to give up without a fight. And then I thought of the drugs in the basement. If Eulalio was arrested, Milagros would be alone and unable to resist eviction. The thought frightened me at first. Turning my son-in-law into the police was one thing, but Milagros would also suffer. She's an accomplice. But then I thought about the way my daughter treated me yesterday, how she demanded $1,500 to stay in the house I gave her, the way she told me I was dead to her. No, Milagros made her choice. She chose her drug-dealing husband over her mother. Now let her be responsible for her choices. Piedad, I told my friend tonight. I'm going to the police tomorrow morning. Are you going to report Eulalio? Yes, I'll tell them about the drugs in the basement. My friend nodded. You're right. That guy is dangerous, and the longer he's out there, the worse it's going to get. What about Milagros? What about Milagros? She's a grown woman. She chose this life for herself. In the morning, I went to the police station. The officer on duty, a young man of about 25, was skeptical at first. Senora, are you sure of what you're saying? Charges of drug trafficking are serious. I saw everything with my own eyes, I replied firmly. Good, then give me the details. I told the officer everything, where the drugs were kept in the basement, how they were packaged, what else was there. I described Eulalio's behavior, his suspicious encounters with strangers. How do you know the address? I used to live there. It's my daughter's house. The officer wrote down every word I said. Then he called his superior, Captain Rivera, a man in his 50s with a mustache and attentive eyes. Senora Vasquez, he said, your information is very interesting. We have long suspected that there is a new drug dealer in town, but we have not been able to identify him. So you believe me? We'll check it out. If the information checks out, Eulalio Montenegro will be arrested. And when will that happen? Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we have to prepare the operation. What about my daughter? The captain looked at me sympathetically. If she knows about her husband's affairs, she could be arrested too. The law is the same for everyone. I nodded. It pained me to think that Milagros could go to jail, but there was no choice. Senora Vasquez, the captain added, after your arrest, you'd better not come home for a while. Eulalio may have associates who will want revenge. I see. On the way home, I felt strange. On the one hand, relief that I'd finally done what I had to do. But on the other, the weight of actually betraying my own daughter. But when I thought back to last night, to Milagros's words that I was dead to her, the doubts faded. She was the first to disown me. Well? Piedad asked when I returned. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, Eulalio will be arrested. And Milagros? I don't know. It depends. In the evening, I met Lisandro again. I told him about the police report and the impending arrest. Okay, said the lawyer. After Eulalio's arrest, it'll be easier to evict Milagros. She won't be able to resist alone. And when is the deal with the buyers? As soon as the house is vacant, the Morales are willing to wait. We agreed that as soon as Eulalio is arrested, Lisandro will deliver the eviction notice to Milagros. And a week later, the sale would take place. I went back to Piedad's with the feeling that I had finally taken my life into my own hands. No one else would tell me what to do. No one else would charge me money to live in my own home. And Milagros, well, she chose her own path. The police operation started at 7 a.m. Captain Rivera had called me the night before and warned me that there would be an arrest tomorrow. I slept poorly, curled up on Piedad's couch, thinking about how tomorrow would change my life forever. In the morning, I sat in my friend's kitchen, drinking coffee and waiting for the police to call. At 8:30, the phone rang. Mrs. Vasquez, this is Captain Rivera. The operation was a success. Eulalio Montenegro has been arrested red-handed. What do you mean red-handed? We caught him just as he was handing over the drugs to the buyer. We found everything you described plus more in the basement. This guy was dealing on a serious scale. What about Milagros? No arrest yet. She claims she didn't know anything about her husband's business, but that's still to be verified. Can I come over? Of course. In fact, I need you to corroborate your statement on the spot. I dressed quickly and went with Piedad to the house. On the way, my heart was pounding like crazy. I knew I was about to see my daughter, and I didn't know how she would react to my appearance. The house was cordoned off with police tape. 2 police cars were parked, and several officers were writing something in their notebooks. Neighbors were gathered outside, curious to see what was going on. Captain Rivera met me at the gate. Senora Vasquez, everything turned out exactly as you said. They found 3 kilos of marijuana in the basement, scales, packaging materials, plus money, about $5,000 in cash. Where's Eulalio? They took him down to the station a half hour ago. He struggled, tried to run, but we got him down quick. Where's Milagros? At the house. We're not done with her yet. I went into the house I once bought for my daughter. There was an officer in the living room taking notes. Milagros was sitting in a chair, pale with tear-stained eyes. When she saw me, her face contorted with rage. You, she shouted, jumping up from her seat. It was you who brought them here. Milagros. Shut up. My daughter came right up to me. You're the one who turned Eulalio into the police. The officer stepped forward, ready to intervene, but I nodded that it was okay. Yes, it was me, I said calmly. I told the police about the drugs in the basement. How could you? There was pain and rage in Milagros's voice. That's my husband. Your husband is a criminal, and you knew it. What do you know about our lives? The daughter spoke louder and louder. We didn't kill anyone. We didn't rob anyone. People wanted to buy. That's no excuse. What am I supposed to do now? Milagros cried. My husband has been arrested. I have no good job, no money. I felt a pang of pity for my daughter. But then I remembered how she had demanded rent from me, how she had told me I was dead to her. Milagros, I said, I have something to tell you. What is it? The house has been sold. The daughter froze. What did you say? The house is sold. The new owners move in a week. It can't be. Milagros turned even paler. The house is mine. You gave it to me. It's in my name. Technically, there was no gift. You're lying. Ask any lawyer. The deed is in my name, so I have the right to sell. Milagros was silent for a few seconds, realizing what she had heard. Then her face contorted with rage. You did it on purpose. You planned all this. I didn't plan anything. I'm just defending my rights. What rights? The daughter raised her voice. You're the one who gave me the house. I did? And then you demanded that I pay $1,500 a month to live there. But where am I supposed to go now? That's not my problem. You said yourself I was dead to you. Milagros looked at me with such hatred that it made me uncomfortable. In her eyes, I saw not a daughter, but a hostile stranger. So you have decided to destroy me? She said quietly. My husband in jail? Me on the street? I've decided to live my life without people who don't appreciate me. They don't? Milagros screamed. Who's supposed to appreciate you? For what? Because you've spent your life controlling us? I didn't control anyone. I loved you. Loved you? I don't want that kind of love. That's fine. Now you have what you wanted. Complete freedom from me. Milagros suddenly lunged at me with her fists. I did not expect such aggression and recoiled, but my daughter managed to hit me on the shoulder. You ruined my life, she shouted, trying to hit me again. The officer quickly grabbed Milagros' hands and pulled her away from me. Stop it now! One more act like that and you're going to the station. Let go! My daughter was lashing out. This woman has ruined my family. Calm down or I'll have to arrest you, the officer said sternly. Milagros stopped struggling, but continued to look at me with hatred. You'll regret this. I swear you'll regret it. Is that a threat? The officer asked. No, Milagros answered quickly. I just don't understand how you can do that to your own daughter. And I don't understand how you can demand rent from your own mother, I replied. Captain Rivera entered the room. Ms. Vasquez, I need you to show me exactly where the boxes of drugs were in the basement. I went down to the basement with the captain. The boxes had already been taken away as evidence, but I showed you exactly where they were. Okay, said the captain. Your testimony is completely corroborated. Eulalio Montenegro will be charged with drug trafficking. He faces up to 10 years in prison. What about Milagros? There's not enough evidence of her involvement yet, but we'll continue to investigate. When we got upstairs, Milagros was still sitting in the chair under the officer's supervision. She was staring at the floor and crying quietly. Milagros, I said, you have a week to get your things and find another place to live. My daughter looked up. Where am I going to go? I don't have money for a rented apartment. You'll find somewhere. You're a grown woman. Mom, Milagros's voice became pleading. Maybe we can make a deal? I'll get a better job. I'll pay your rent. It's too late. The house is already sold. The contract's signed. But I'm your daughter. You said yourself I was dead to you. So you're dead to me. I turned and walked towards the exit. Behind me, I heard Milagros crying again, but she didn't turn around. Senora Vasquez, Captain Rivera stopped me. You really had better not come here for a while. Eulalio has acquaintances who might try to take revenge. I see. I had no intention of coming back. A week later, the sale was finalized. Lisandro Vega brought the papers to Piedad's house, and I signed them right in my friend's kitchen. $80,000 was a huge amount of money that completely changed my life. What are you going to do now? Piedad asked after the lawyer left. Buy a house, a small one, but my own. And will you work? I'll see. With that kind of money, you don't have to work if you spend it sparingly. We found a suitable house 2 days later. It was 3 blocks from Piedad, small but cozy. 2 rooms, kitchen, bathroom, small yard. It cost $25,000, and I put the rest of the money in the bank with interest. The day I moved into my new house symbolized the beginning of a new life. Piedad helped me get settled, brought me flowers, and prepared dinner. Well, friend, she said as we sat in my new kitchen, you finally have your own home. Yes, and no one can charge me rent to live in it. And how's Milagros doing? I shrugged. I hadn't known anything about my daughter since the day she'd been evicted. I heard from neighbors that she rents a room in an old house on the outskirts of town, works in a cheap beauty salon. I don't know, and I don't want to know. No regrets? Regret what? Protecting your rights? That I didn't let the criminals bully me? Piedad nodded. You're right. It's just, she is your daughter. She used to be, and now she's a stranger. It's been a few months. Eulalio was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Milagros was never prosecuted because they couldn't prove her involvement in the drug trade. I lived quietly and peacefully in my new home. I started a small vegetable garden, read books, met with Piedad. The money in the bank brought a small but steady income. Sometimes in town, I saw Milagros from afar. She had changed a lot. She had lost weight, aged, and her eyes didn't have the same sparkle. But when we met, we pretended not to notice each other. One time she tried to talk to me. It was in the store. I was buying groceries, and suddenly I heard a familiar voice. Mom? I turned around. Milagros was standing next to me looking bad, in cheap clothes, no makeup, tired. Mom, can we talk? About what? I asked coldly. I wanted to apologize for what I said the other day. It's too late to apologize. Mom, please, I realize I was wrong. Maybe we can. We can't, I interrupted. You made your choice then. Live with him. I grabbed the grocery basket and walked to the register. Milagros didn't follow me. That same evening, Piedad asked me, Aren't you being cruel to her? What did she do to me? I replied. Demanded $1,500 a month, said I was dead to her. Let her deal with her own problems now. But she's remorseful. She's remorseful because life has gotten hard, and when she was doing well, she wouldn't let me in. Piedad sighed, but we never spoke again. A year passed, then another. I got used to my new life without my daughter. At first, it hurt to think of not having a family, but gradually the pain dulled. I had Piedad, I had acquaintances, I had a cozy home and a quiet life. It was enough to be happy. Sometimes I wondered if I had done the right thing. Maybe I should have forgiven Milagros, given her another chance. But then I remembered her saying I was dead to her, her demand for rent, her attack on me the day Eulalio was arrested. No, I did the right thing. Everyone has to take responsibility for their actions. And if the daughter chose a criminal husband over her mother, let her live with the consequences of that choice.